Hi everyone, this is Ronnie from Everything Vive. I'm here at E3 2018, and I have the pleasure of getting a chance to meet with the folks over at Polyarc. Danny, right?
Yeah.
If you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what your role is at Polyarc and your involvement with Moss.
Yeah, so I'm Danny Bulla, and I'm the design director at Polyarc, and for Moss.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome. I guess how did you end up at Polyarc? Were you part of the founding team or like what?
Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders, one of the three co-founders.
Okay.
And a group of us met while working on Destiny at Bungie.
Okay, very cool. And was this your first? Did you guys leave Bungie to try to start something in VR, or were you?
Well, what happened for Tam and I, who's one of the other co-founders, we had just wrapped up our responsibilities on Destiny, so we shipped it, we got out the door, and then we were both in a position where we were looking for something creative for us to do in different ways, as you do with projects.
Yeah.
As you want to move between the next thing or the next thing. And so one of the experiences that we had kind of individually, but then we came together to talk about it, was the early demos of the Oculus and the Vive. And that really kind of set us on this path towards thinking that this is a new medium. There's a wide open space for us to create content and make a world and bring people into it. And there's cool new ways to interact in VR that we don't have in regular gaming.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that set us on this path. And we set out to make something that we thought would be good for VR.
Okay.
Instead of the other way of bringing other things that weren't in VR and putting them in there.
Awesome. So, I mean, yeah, as most of our listeners will probably know, Moss ended up being like almost like a puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
But was that your initial thought from the design aspect of what you guys wanted to tackle, or did you do a prototyping stage where you kind of tried some other stuff?
We a little bit of A, a little bit of B. So we knew right off the bat that it would be important for us to have physical interaction, and that was something that's new with VR. That was when we had those tracked controllers.
Yeah.
That was really exciting. And so we knew we were inspired by other games and puzzle games, and we really liked sort of like the tactile feel of games like The Room and sort of the encapsulated Portal, the puzzles that are there. And so those were kind of all inspirations, with many more.
Yeah.
And so we knew that we kind of wanted to do something along the lines of that.
Okay.
And so that kind of set us on the path towards making it an action-adventure puzzle game. And then the next step for us was actually creating a prototype. So there was four of us, the three co-founders and our first engineer, Brendan Walker, in a little office where we made for 3 months, it was about 12 weeks, we made a prototype of Moss. And it kind of had everything that's in there right now. You can move bricks and statues around with your hands. You had light puzzles, and there was some platforming and a little bit of combat. And we found that was like a really cool mix, and the ratios were good. So kind of moved forward with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you guys started working on it, in the kind of in the early Oculus days. What types of controllers were you guys using at the time? Like for early, I'm just kind of curious because obviously, that would probably impact kind of some of your design choices and all of that. Like obviously, it works super well with the Oculus Touch controllers and the Vive wands, but just because it eventually did come to the PlayStation, I didn't know if using just like a physical controller versus how you guys made those kind of decisions.
Totally. We were, like you said, it works well on the Vives and Touch, and we had a good relationship with Valve early on and with Sony, and we first initially started making the game. Because this was before you could get dev kits. This is before this. This is where we were a couple years ago. We actually took a PlayStation Eye camera and a DK2 camera, and the DK2 camera was used for the headset, and then the PlayStation Eye was used for a Move controller.
Wow.
And then a little bit of a throwback. I don't know if you remember the nunchuck.
Yeah.
That came with the old PSI.
Yeah.
So that's how we were controlling Quill. And so at first you only needed one hand to be tracked, and so we would use the Move to track, and we'd use the nunchuck to move Quill, and then eventually we got the touch controllers as those came out and the Vive wands, and so we just started adapting. But we always kind of had this idea of what sort of the most common input mechanisms on each of the controllers would be, and that definitely influenced our control scheme and the gameplay and the design decisions we made. Yeah.
No, because I mean, from a game player's perspective, it's really cool to have both the precision of a joystick, especially in a platformer.
Totally.
Because whether you're looking at the PlayStation 4 or you're looking at the PC, just having that one-to-one VR and motion controls are great, of course.
Yeah.
But there's still something, I think, right now, like with joysticks and being able to move your character that one-to-one just perfect, you know, and at the same time being able to manipulate the environment as, you know, the kind of overarching like ghost-like character,
the reader,
you know, from the reader. So it's a really good mix of the two, and I guess looking at how you guys kind of went from the early prototyping stages, it kind of makes sense, I guess, how you guys.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that. It was important to us, and that precision that comes with the analog stick is something that we talk about as to everyone we work with, that we think it's actually very important to have that precision and have that thumbstick. And we were able to make it feel great on the Vive, in our opinions, but with the touchpads.
Yeah.
But so it's cool that we can support everything. But we do find that a lot of people enjoy having that precision of an analog stick. And so that's something that we know as developers that we also feel too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons too of why that we've had to like break down and analyze. So it's cool. It's cool that you recognize that as well.
You know, obviously Moss came out fairly recently, both on the PlayStation as well as the PC. We'll get into the you know, PC releases in a little bit, but because that's more recent. But cool. I mean, even the release of Moss. I mean, clearly, if you guys were working on it so early on, and then, you know, eventually bringing it to consumer level hardware, like what were some of the changes like along the lines of as the technology obviously got better and different, like was it challenging to develop in kind of such an early prototypical stage for the hardware?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's kind of this was our first experience working with hardware specifically. A lot of us come from console traditional gaming developers, so kind of, you have this box and this is what it is, and you plug in the controller and you play on your PC. And so it was definitely a learning experience for us to become sort of like the hardware was so new, and even the software that goes with the hardware was like non-existent. Then it started growing, and so it was on us to sort of find our way and try to get it work. We didn't have as much, you know, all the companies were really good at supporting us as developers because we showed them that prototype that I talked about a little bit earlier, so they knew what we were working on. And kudos to all the platform holders. I could say all three of them, like Sony, Oculus, and Steam, were all really, really good at like, hey, do you guys need anything? Like, here's the latest update drivers. Sometimes and so like that was very helpful for us as a small team of like 4 or 5 guys trying to make the game at the time.
Yeah.
But by the time we hit full production and like getting ready for E3 and everything like that, I think most of the platforms had the hardware was kind of figured out. We knew what we were working with, and so we were able just to execute on the content and the idea. So it was a cool journey there. Like, we have different challenges now than we did back in the days of just trying to get our USB drivers to work, so we could get the controllers to map and track and stuff. But it was cool. I'm kind of having a little bit of nostalgia now as you bring that up. I'm thinking about all this stuff. It's cool.
Well, and obviously now we know in retrospect that the game was, you know, ready to be, you know, put out on all the various platforms. But were there any kind of specific choices you made for the PlayStation specifically, or like how did that come about, like releasing it on the PlayStation first, and what were some of the challenges?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a straightforward decision to us because we are a small team that we needed to focus all our energy onto one platform first. And at the time, for us, we had been talking to Sony for a while. They were great partners early on, and they were in a position to encourage more VR developers to keep making games. And so that we went there as we knew that would be a lower barrier of entry because there was a lot of PlayStations. That's where we could focus our energy, and it turned out really great for us because we cut our teeth on a lot, and then they were fortunate enough to put us up at E3, which did a lot for us too last year, right? And so it's great. And I think just some of the challenges that we had with Sony. The hardware, not One of some of the challenges was just understanding how to make that physical interaction feel good and immersive and intuitive and natural when your hands are holding a controller. And I would say that was one of the things that I spent a lot of time. So that's my first reaction to talk about that. We did a lot of kind of just like measuring arm distances and trying to think what actually feels natural and intuitive to like grab on and reach into the world. And you know, some of the challenges that we have graphically that the artists had to optimize and the engineers were trying to make sure we can fit all on the PlayStation. And so those were a lot of just like, and that's kind of just console challenges in general, and that's what we found. A lot of the challenges that happen in traditional game development on the consoles are the same things that we were dealing with in VR, just slightly different answers to those things. And so, it was typical like game development, just with this twist of a new medium and like hardware tracking and stuff. So.
Okay, I wanted to get more into design, but since we're on the path of the hardware and the tech side of things a little bit, so you obviously had to work hard to optimize it and make it run great on the PlayStation. Then what was it like to eventually bring it to the PC? Because I know you and I spoke just very briefly before this about the fact that you guys decided to simultaneously announce and release the game to everyone's surprise.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, what some of the work was kind of behind the scenes to get the game ready for the PC platforms.
Yeah, so when we finished and shipped on the PSVR, that became our focus. It was like, let's get this to as many players as we can as possible. Unfortunately, we were making the game on Unreal Engine, which already kind of out of the box supports PC development.
Yeah.
So the big chunk of the engine work had already been done for us. Thank you, Epic. But what we did have to figure out is now we have different mechanisms for input, right? We had to figure out how to, we wanted to do some things. One of the goals when we started was, hey, like, we want to make this what a PC, like the ideal PC player experience. What do PC players expect from a game? And let's make sure we have that. And so that's sort of why we added things in like graphic settings, and we added in save slots so that multiple people, if you're all on one PC, could share it and you didn't have to do that. And we actually patched all that stuff back into PS4.
Yeah, I saw that.
And along that was a new thing for us to ship on multiple platforms all at once with different input mechanisms on a wide range of, everyone has a different PC, right? And so, like I said, we had great support from the Unreal Engine in that regard, but also for us just trying to wrap our heads around what it meant to be on multiple platforms, where we have to do the assets, right? Because we're self-published, so we do all the store assets. We have to hit the upload button and get it up there, and there's all these things that we necessarily didn't have to do before as developers at AAA studios. There's people doing that. There's us doing it. And so,
I feel like that's like anyone that goes from a big company to a small team has to kind of suffer through at the beginning, like how to it's things that might have seemed easy. All of a sudden now are kind of big hurdles that you have to kind of overcome.
But that's where all the growth came from too. So that's been exciting for me as a developer, and I know a lot of the people on the team is we get to wear a lot more hats than we used to. And so that's just really fulfilling for us as creatives.
Very cool. So moving over to I guess the art/design side of things a little bit. I mean, obviously Moss is stunning as far as everything from the design choices of the world and the characters and to the animation. I think the animation to me really stands out as being something that really sucks you in, compared to, especially right now, I think with a lot of VR titles, where you don't necessarily have all of the developers that have the bigger studio experience, or the art experience for that matter, kind of figuring some of that stuff out. Like Moss stands apart as far as it's like a charming, living, breathing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about kind of what went into to your design choices as far as making it kind of more tangible for VR, and work within that medium specifically?
Yeah, we were making choices every corner we turned, with the goal for VR, right? And so what's going to be the best, and VR is really good at bringing out and emphasizing all sorts of things. It can emphasize the bad things as well, but it also can emphasize a lot of the good things, especially like the emotional bond. And I think that's some of the special stuff that comes from Quill and VR. I don't think that relationship would be the same if you were looking at it through a traditional TV or window. Some of the choices that we made, one interesting thing is we knew early on that we wanted to have a character that you could interact with, and we wanted this to be a companion. Like, this was you as a character in the world and another character going through this adventure together, and that was sort of like our high level. We wanted to bring you into the world and do that. And so that presented us, before we even knew a Quill was going to be a rodent, it presented us with a situation where we had to say, okay, are you a giant and you're looking down on human-sized things, or are you human size and you're interacting with a giant, and all these different scale things that we had to figure out. And what we ended up realizing is we wanted something that was more intimate and that you could reach out and grab, because that's one of our big tenets. And so we kind of landed on, we have these options of it could be a robot, it could be a little pet robot, it could be an alien, it could be a small creature. or rodents came, and we have anthropomorphic history like through all media, right? And so one of our artists, art director at the time, he went and did just a quick sketch of like 4 rodents that I wonder if we'll ever see the light of day. And it had Quill on there, but Quill had a different name, and Quill was a lot older and not as cute. And it was interesting to like see this 4. There was like a little owl and stuff. And when we saw that, it was just organic. All of us were like, "Yep, this is where we're going." And that was all like, if you follow that thread, that was all based off of like, hey, we want something that you can reach out and grab in VR, right?
That's
and so it was
cool.
all threaded all the way through. And that's just one example of how developing with the goal for VR from the ground up has influenced a lot of our decisions that we made, which I think is good, and it's cool to hear you say that comes through.
Yeah. No, especially like you mentioned a little bit about scale, and obviously you ended up going with kind of, choosing to have a small companion and interact with kind of a miniature-sized world for the most part.
Yeah.
And I say the most part because, anyone that's played Moss will also understand that, throughout the world, you kind of, every now and then are kind of reminded that you're kind of in a larger scale world as well.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, like, kind of how you guys decided, when to kind of bring those moments about, and how you, because I think they're very powerful.
Yeah, it's great that it's great that you picked up on that, because we would have that conversation a lot of, hey, we need to alternate. And I can share another thing that we do. We need to alternate and remind you that you said the best words, like remind you that you're in a human scale world, right? And so that just comes down to pacing and cadence in the areas that we did, and we would be playing through the levels, and then we would get feedback, and everyone would get feedback. Hey, I think we should throw some more human scale objects in here, because every time we did it was super cool. Like, you think back to Secret of Nim and stuff like that. Whenever you see the human scale object with a rodent next to it, you're just like, oh, that's super cool, right?
Yeah.
And so, that was definitely intentional, and we did it. We kind of tried to spread it through based off what felt right and the environment, like the swords and the armor in the swamp, and then other places there's like a shield in the background, and we just tried to do it with what felt. And then kind of the artists got to use their instinct on that. Something else that we found through VR, and now we're actually carrying through, and I hear the artists talking about this a lot, is like, we want to do more enclosed and spaces than that open up, right? And like kind of fluctuating between the two. So sometimes we bring you in and we make you feel like this, like inside the house. Yeah. And then we want to bring you out into these open areas. And so now that is something that you have to consider it, but it's very tangible in VR when you're in a small space versus being in an open space. Yeah. Right? And so we just want to play with that more, and we want to explore that more too. Yeah. So similar with the human scale objects.
Okay, very cool. And as far as the gameplay was concerned, obviously there's puzzles in Moss. I wouldn't say they're super difficult puzzles. Yeah. They're more which I really enjoyed because it still kept the flow, right? Yeah. You never felt like you were really bogged down. Was that part of, you wanted to keep the flow to the gameplay going, or what?
Absolutely. The cadence is important. It's very interesting thing about puzzles in VR that we found as we were playtesting. I think the instinct, at least for us, me and the other designers had not worked on puzzle games before, so that was probably one of our biggest challenges during the project, was understanding how to make puzzles that were not taxing but also fit within the gameplay. Yeah. And something we found early on was making challenging puzzles that made people have to stop and think for a while wearing a headset actually became very taxing. Yeah. And so we were in a position where we were looking at the puzzles and we're saying, hey, how do we? And this is a great exercise, and someone like Nintendo does it really well. But when you're like, oh, we want to do it like Nintendo, that's a really hard thing to do. But that's something good to aim for, right? We just started boiling it down as much as possible as we can to kind of the least amount of steps, but the most reward when you figure it out, right? And so kind of we would keep it to 3 or 4 kind of different steps that you had to do. And then give you that aha moment, which is really cool. And it would always be great when we would test a new puzzle, and then someone would go and they would go, got it, and we're yeah, sweet. That's what we're chasing. That's what we want, that feeling. And so that was another thing that we do, just to go on that, is we spread out the mechanics across the level so that we slowly introduce you to the different things that you'll need to do before you get to the puzzle that needs you to do all of those at the same time. And that's something that we actually learned from reading a lot about how Nintendo designs their puzzles in the Mario games. Yeah. They kind of introduce you to a mechanic. After that, they give you a way to use it. They teach you how to use it. Yep. And then they give you a little bit of a challenge with it, and then they kind of final it off by making a twist, making you use this mechanic in a way that you might not think exactly before. And so we kind of took that template and applied it to the different rooms. And actually, I'm really excited that we get to explore that even more as we make as we continue forward.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got lost. My train of thought got lost just listening to you explain about explain about all these lessons and everything, because it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Let me try to think, because I had a good question. That's what I back on.
We're in there.
I had a question about, I guess, narrative and the storytelling aspects of the game, because obviously, like, some of the story is told, immediately through the gameplay. Some of it is told through storybook panels and different like animations. And I was just kind of curious if you could talk a little bit about, what you decided to introduce the player to through the storybook versus the gameplay, and kind of what your thoughts were on.
Yeah. So. Again, with us being a small team, we found out early on that animating all of the story moments that we wanted to do with one animator, while he's an amazing animator.
Wow. Okay.
His name's Rick Lico, and he did all of the animations in the whole entire game, which is a testament to his skill.
No, because they have so much character.
Yeah, and so he's a very fast and like worker. Cares a lot about his work, and so for us to say, hey, we want to do these like 3-minute storytelling moments where we need to push the narrative around with how gameplay, that was just a lot for the development team to take on. And so as we learned about the different sort of plot points that we wanted to get across, when we fully understood Quill's journey and the narrative, which goes past what you play in book 1, right? Then we saw the different types of settings that we would need in the scenes, and then we came to the book, and kind of having to dig back. I remember the feeling of when we decided to do the book, because we were all like, okay, we can achieve this.
Yeah.
The book ended up actually being a lot of work as well, but back then we were like, this is going to be less work than animating all the keyframes.
Well, and it does a good job. Like, I can imagine why you would want to introduce that for the reasons you're saying. It also gives that sense of scale too. Like, it's so it kind of you ended up using it to play up some of the other strengths of the game.
Yeah, and we always knew from early on, actually in the original prototype, that I don't know, we have some videos, it'll be cool to post it sometime. It's actually strikingly similar to the game that came out, which is really cool, but we had a book that you would open up, and that's how you would get into the game. And so we've kind of always had that book there, and we always wanted to transport you into it. It was just somewhere through development, I can't remember right now exactly when, and we were just like, oh, let's tell the story in the book, that would be really cool. And then we had to make a lot of decisions after that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So if we want to circle back to your decision to simultaneously announce and release it on PC.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like from the inside perspective of just getting excited to kind of share this with everybody out there, and then what the response has been like since you did release the game on PC.
Yeah, so the response has been awesome so far. We're like, the whole team is like on the Steam forums trying to engage, and we're on Reddit and Twitter and stuff, and we're just trying to make sure now that the game's out that we can interact more with the community and hear what they're saying, and we have the ability to continue to work and fix issues that people are having. And so as they post them, we're investigating them. Absolutely. For us, it's interesting because we were focused on getting the game out, and we weren't necessarily having a media campaign going on at the same time, which sometimes has the media campaigns are great for the consumers, but they also have a cool effect on the developers, as we get to kind of ride the media wave too, and it gets us excited. And so this was a new experience for all of us that we didn't have that, but it was really cool to walk out of the office today and be like, hey guys, when we come in tomorrow, the game's going to be live.
It's so crazy.
And some of the guys came in really early to make sure that it could go live and turn it on and stuff. But it was a different experience. We came straight to E3 right after, so there wasn't a lot of time to digest it, but it was cool. Everyone was really excited. It's really cool just to see so many people that have been wanting to play the game be able to play it, right? And so that was really cool for us.
Awesome. So looking forward, I guess, to the future. I know you guys are just off of releasing Moss on the PC, and I'm sure you guys still have work to do as far as ironing out things on that. But what can customers be excited about as far as what you guys are working on and what you intend to release?
Yeah, so right now we're really excited about the world of Moss. We're going to keep building. We have more Quill story that we want to tell. More of Quill story, I should say. Use proper words.
I just got tongue-tied myself, which usually doesn't happen. So
cool. Good. We're in good company. Yeah, for us, hopefully after all the dust settles on the PC launch, we're gonna get back to the studio and we're gonna hit the ground running on like, hey, how do we take all the things that we've learned from Moss? We did a retrospective where we all got in a room for a whole day and just talked about all the different things that we liked and didn't like, and what could go better, right? And so we spent some time doing that. So we have to go and kind of digest all of that. We're gonna look at how Moss is performing. What do consumers want? How do we bring more Quill to them? So if we're fortunate enough to like continue down that path, we will. We're looking for partners right now to try to work with us to continue telling Quill story.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we lie. We're gonna get back to Seattle, and we're gonna kind of hit the whiteboard. And
right.
we have a lot of things that we're excited about, but we don't exactly have a plan on what exactly it will be. We just know that we really like Quill.
Yeah.
we know people really like Quill,
yep.
and we have more of her story to tell, obviously, as the way that we end the game. And so that's kind of where our future lies. We want to keep telling stories in the world of Moss. We want to keep telling Quill's story, and we're really excited about where VR is going. We have the second wave of content coming in right now.
No, I felt it too. Like from GDC to here to you see all the studios that kind of got their feet wet with their first releases.
Yeah.
Now coming with more like fully fleshed out, like kind of they just seem like more mature releases of the similar concepts that you've seen before.
Yeah.
But just like with that extra bit of polish and extra bit of features.
Yep. And I think that's only possible because everyone did that first wave of content, right? There's no way you get on a new medium and don't have to fail to learn. Right?
Yeah.
And not to say that those things failed, and just like in terms of the way that you iterate on mechanics and ideas, like you have to like kind of, it's a little vulgar, but like ram your head against the wall, right? Just try to like figure it out. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of developers have figured out what makes VR VR, the things that they're excited about, and the things that they think that will shine on VR. And so I definitely encourage people that have put away the headsets or like kind of stepped away from VR for a bit because there wasn't that much content to like kind of come back and like check out what's there, because there's like Beat Saber, there's us, there's
it's crazy.
Vector, all the new games that got announced at E3, and so there's a lot to be excited for. I think with VR, I know as Polyarc we're super excited about it. So
no, I had the same feeling. Like I said, I think it really hit me at GDC in March, where you were trying out all these new titles that were coming to market, and just thinking like, oh wow, like it's literally like just a way, like you said, there's so much amazing good content that's coming to VR that I don't even know how I'm going to keep up with playing it all. It's like, which is a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, we just need to get everyone back in there and playing, and I think the great content's coming. I'm right there with you.
All right, awesome. Well, if people out there want to reach out or keep in touch with what Polyarc's up to, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way to reach us directly is definitely through Twitter. That's kind of our main channel out into the internet ethos. But also, now that we're out on PC, the Steam forums, we're actively checking that. There's a couple subreddits, both the Oculus, the Vive, and the PSVR subreddits. We try to scroll through there and see as people bring up Moss and stuff. So and then you can always email us through the website. But Twitter's where you'll get a lot of our announcements out front. It's a good way to interact with us. And then all the rest of our social media too. It's usually all just Polyarc games.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing more from you guys in the future.
Great, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.